Okay, a very warm welcome back, everyone. The next session is if you're wondering about how to repower your diesel yacht into an electric motor. Now, it's my privilege to welcome to the session today Mr. Joerg Kalisch. He's the Managing Director of Dexmarine. He's a boat owner and he's an expert in electric-powered engines. So welcome, Joerg.
Hi, Dion. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Look, you've been ahead of the curve for a number of years in this diesel versus electric, Joerg. You've been on this electric motor crusade, and I'm sure that you've been around the troops with it quite a lot. So we're very appreciative to have you here. And tell us a little bit, is there a big surge in interest and demand for electric yachts these days for boaters? And is it from new boaters or existing boaters?
It's actually both. To be honest, if you go about 10 years back, I was sort of one of the early ones talking about electric engines, and everyone said, yeah, interesting, maybe later. And that has shifted about a couple of years ago. Basically because electric now, it's everywhere. You have the scooters in Singapore, you have electric cars, everybody talks about it, green technology. And the tide has really turned for us. It's now the other way around. We're getting many inquiries, and not only for diesel boats, but also for petrol, obviously. So people are really keen to understand, first of all, how does it all work? Does it make sense in my case? And we are typically what we do. We have to go a bit more in details. It's not just a clean answer. Yeah, you can do this. It always depends on. We call it the use case. So what is the customer wanting to do with the boat? So are we talking about day cruising from 115 to St. John, so RSYC, within Singapore waters? Or is it more long journeys? Is it a power boat? Is it a sailboat? Are you talking lots of range or speed? And we would look into all the different cases individually and see what is possible. Typically, there is a lot of systems out there from Tokido, where I work mainly, but many other companies, starting from very small engines, for example, for kayaks. We see a lot of upsurge in this one. So people are locked down in Singapore. They don't know what to do. They buy a kayak. After 2 weeks paddling, they're getting a bit tired. Then they look for electric motors. And we have a very small one. I will show that later. For this purpose, then stepping up, you look at repowering your dinghies, and we'll talk about it in a while as well. And then last but not least, that's then the big decision whether you would swap out your existing diesel petrol engine for an electric engine, or even talk to the boat builder if you're a new boat owner, to come up with an electric version as well. And many of the big guys nowadays, they have at least 1 or 2 options in their portfolio as they look. It can be a gasoline engine, can be a diesel engine, or it can be an electric engine. So that's running into that direction.
Lots of options, and it's really interesting to hear you say that the tide has well and truly turned these days, which is interesting. So that sort of leads me into the next question, or how established are these electric engines, and what are some of the brands that are making making waves, or that are also making these electric engines? So what's your comments there?
You will be surprised if you go back in history. You will find out that. The land speed record of cars, the first one was an electric car almost, 90 or 100 years ago. And the same is true also for boats. There were boat races in the early 1900s which were using electric engines. But then, of course, the battery technology was not there. And at the end of the day, people looking at more power and more speed, then all the electric stuff went away. Well, we had submarines, obviously, which are half electric, half diesel. But it has been around for a long time, but there is a lot of advancement in technology. First of all, in terms of the efficiency of the motors. In the old days, you had sort of brush motors, which had carbon electrodes, and they gave a bit of a trouble. Now we all have electronically commutated brushless motors. We have the lithium-ion batteries, which have tremendous more power than the classical lead-acid batteries. So things have advanced quite a bit, and we're looking at a complete different game nowadays.
Okay, great. We've got a slide here with some different types of electric engines on them. So will I show that now, and you can just step us through. So I'll just share my screen here. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes, I can see okay.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about this slide.
Exactly. So as I mentioned in the beginning, on the left upper corner, you see a small one for kayaks. Then the next one is more for dinghies, and you step up different power classes all the way up to 8 horsepower, 20 horsepower, 50 horsepower. I'm showing a couple of the torpedo engines, also big inwards, all the way up to 200 kilowatts, which is in the lower left corner.
This one?
Further on the right, sail drives. If you typically have a catamaran, for example, you may want to have a sail drive rather than an inboard shaft drive. Then pod drives, even ones which are rotatable. So maybe people would know the IPS systems from Volvo, where you sort of joystick-wise steer the boat left, right, forward, and backward. That can be done electric as well, and a different variety of pod motors. Typical names you would hear in the market is obviously Torpedo as the market leader. We have about 120,000 units sold so far. There are others around like e-propulsion from China, Elco. As you can see, the classical outboard more on the top line. Looks like a normal petrol outboard. The black one in the center is Elco from the US. Then further down, the silvery one is an Austrian company, Kreutler. There are quite a number around, and I would say people should shop around and see what kind of drive, what price point, what features would fit then to the use case of the individual customer.
Okay, great. And so, so what are some of the pros and cons of diesel, electric versus diesel, Joerg?
Okay, let's start with the pros first, and maybe if I may, a small anecdote of my first days with electric. You remember the Formula One races here in Singapore? So we brought our boat into the Marina Bay. Then you anchor off. Then you have guests coming, so we used the dinghy to get them from shore to the boat and back. And at that time, I had a brand new, I won't say the brand, a brand new 4-stroke petrol outboard. Was very nice, reasonably cheap, and the problem was when I was in the Marina Bay, it didn't start, so I spent until 3 o'clock in the morning taking the carburetor apart, all the bits and pieces, and put it back together. And whilst I was doing this, looking around, all the other boats were anchored there, the bigger ones especially, where the owner was not even there, but the boat boys and the crew were getting everything ready. So everybody sitting in their dinghy, the cowl came off from the engine, pull, nothing was working. I said, good God, there has to be a different solution. And this is especially true for many boaters here in Singapore, not using these small petrol engines very frequently. Then they tend to have problems with bad fuel, gumming up and so forth. And with an electric motor, we have a complete different ballgame. There is only one moving part inside. There is no maintenance, no oil, no impellers, no changes, no carburetors, whatever. It's only every 3 to 5 years, maybe a $50, $60 change of a front seal. That's the only maintenance you have to do. So for that segment of the smaller ones, typically for boaters with a dinghy, for example, even though you pay a lot more if you buy one, but you have sort of the peace of mind whenever you need it, it will work. So there's nothing which can go wrong. You charge the battery and off you go, and no questions asked, it will start all the time.
Interesting. Okay,
that will be the pros. And talking a bit more, we look at different segments. One, let's say, is the commercial side, ferries, tourist boats, stuff like that. For them, it's pretty easy over maybe 2 or 3 years just to even calculate a commercial advantage where, I mean, you save on fuel, you save on spare parts, you save on maintenance and so forth. So the boats are running every day. So every day it's working towards your goal to get to a break-even point and then make a profit. And also for the occasional boaters, as I mentioned before, it's the reliability issue. Whenever you need it, it works. You don't have to deal with all the different fuel types and whatever comes with it. And a typical petrol or diesel motor has hundreds of moving parts. They're not being moved all the time, so they're not taking this so lightly. People boaters say the worst you can do to your engine is not running it.
Yeah.
And that is, I have to say, is the majority of us here in Singapore, where you go out on the weekend or maybe once a month, and then it's where the problem's starting, and electric is switch it on, it works.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So the cons. So what are the cons for these electric motors?
The cons are, of course, the initial investment is a bit higher. As I mentioned before, it's more expensive, not so much on the motor side, but it's on the battery side. So the batteries are not as cheap as we wish. And if you compare, a fuel tank costs you a few $100, but a battery costs you a couple of $1,000. And then let's say if you have your use case wrong and you need more range, with a diesel engine, you just get a bigger fuel tank for $100, and if it's a battery system, you spend a couple of $1,000 to get the range. So, in a nutshell, it's initial price. However, what we do is we do a very, very defined calculation on exactly what boat it is. We need to have a power speed curve, know the resistance, know exactly what power is needed. How far does the customer want to go? Can he have solar? Is he sailing? Can he do hydrogeneration? There are many, many, many variables to do that. And by the end of the day, we're always able to say, look, it's doable. That is the price. It's your decision. Or, what you want 500 kilowatt. You want to go 2,000 kilometers on one charge. Then we still have to say, guys, sorry, thanks for asking, but this is not the use case right now.
It's not going to work, yeah. Okay,
and not to worry. I mean, it sounds like a lot of consultancy work before you even start defining a system. I mean, for us, this is part of the sales cycle. This is all free of charge. And if we arrive to a point in time where the customer says, "No, it's too expensive," or "It doesn't do what I want to do," so be it. This is then my expense. There is no upfront payment for that. So we come back either with a doable solution, or we come to the conclusion, very honestly, it's a good idea that you want to do electric, but in your case, it doesn't make sense. Okay. And we have to be very, very clear with that, because the worst case will be we do something, we're not quite sure, then the customer is not happy. And that's, of course, a big setback then for the customer and for us as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's a bit of a lose-lose, isn't it? So, we hear from quite a few people that are maybe first-timers as well, that are thinking about buying a boat, and they say, I'm thinking about repowering it. Mm-hmm. So, how realistic is it to repower? Is it possible to do it? And if it was possible, just step us through how you'd actually do that, Joerg.
Yeah, okay. So as I mentioned before, we look at the existing boat, we look at the existing engine power, obviously the space in the engine compartment, and we do the calculation, what system would fit in terms of geometry and power, and obviously then also energy consumption. We need to find space in the boat for the batteries. If it's a hybrid, we also have hybrid solutions, obviously. It's half electric, half diesel, so it would then come with a generator. And the beauty is we can tie in everything, all the house loads, microwaves, air conditioning, everything can be then run from a central system, which then, of course, makes it very sophisticated. But again, the main goal is to really understand what does the customer wants to do with the boat, what are the capabilities. For us at Torqeedo, we end up the maximum size of systems we can do is 2 times 100 kilowatts electric, which is equivalent to twin 160 horsepower diesel. And of course, there are then for bigger boats, for super yachts, there are the Siemens, the ABBs, Danfoss, Editron around. They go up to megawatts, even to the size of cargo ships and tankers. The sky there is the limit.
Wow, okay. So if my boat was suitable to repower, let's just say I bought a second-hand catamaran, how would I actually do that? Or what's the project and pulling the old one out and putting new ones in?
It's pretty straightforward. So most of the motors, they would more or less fit on the existing engine mounts with a few modifications. If you talk about an inboard, clear cut, outboard, not a problem. You have the bracket at the back. We have different shaft lengths, short one, long one, extra long one, so to match the geometry of the stern of the boats. And as I mentioned before, we have the sail drives. Let's say, for example, you have a Yanmar sail drive in the boat as well at the moment. You take out the old sail drive, is bolt compatible. You plug in the electric drive, you just tighten the screws, put the batteries, charge it up, and you're ready to go.
Okay, sounds good. Now we were talking about the pros and cons before, and we didn't really sort of specifically talk about the environment, Joerg, but you've got a slide here or a comment here on about an environmental impact. Let me just share that now. I think this is the one here.
That is the big issue. I mean, in principle, if you look at the clean tech or the clean side of, it's a different slide, Dwayne.
Yeah, let me just find it.
Marine engines are, as of today, inherently dirty. The fuel is dirty. There's no comparison to what's happening on the road. The regulations are very lax. And if you show that slide again, just a little bit of an eye-opener. If you take an 80 horsepower petrol outboard off the planet and put an electric one in, the environmental impact would be like taking 350 modern cars off the road. So the dirt and the soot and whatever it is, and NOx and CO2, 80 horsepower petrol belches out, is equivalent to 350 cars. So if that is a thing, if you look at the green side of things, you want to do the right thing, absolutely going electric is a major step forward.
Yeah, that's quite remarkable, really, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So do you think this repowering is something that a first-time boater should do, or is it something that, should be left for experienced people?
Not really. It's pretty much independent in terms of the job to be done, and the outcome is the same. I would even say for a new boater who is not familiar with engine stuff and knows diesel engines or petrol engines. I mean, Singapore is a small island. There are not so many good qualified engineers around looking after your engine. So it becomes a pretty expensive exercise. If your diesel doesn't work and you have to get one of the experts coming in, it's very expensive. That part totally goes away with electric. So especially if a new boat owner, maybe not even wanting to understand the diesel engine inside out, that would be definitely an easy way in, because there is, as I said, there is virtually no maintenance. There is nothing to be done. Okay. And after 3 to 5 years, depending on the engine, it's a short visit from us to check that everything is okay, and that's about it. So there is no issues with all the typical gremlins you have: heat exchangers, rusting, corroding, salt deposits, calcium deposit, all that stuff you have with a combustion engine. They just basically don't exist.
So what I hear you saying then is, because quite a few first-timers, they're worried about how to take care of it. They're worried about the maintenance. Maintenance can be a nightmare in, in places where there's not much expertise or quality technicians. So going electric for someone really is a good way to leapfrog, isn't it? Leapfrog having to worry about learning that maintenance. You can just basically let that go and then go straight. I hadn't really been aware of that before. But why? You normally have to learn some stuff, don't you? But if you don't have to with electric, then why not just step into the future rather than having to wade your way through learning some of this diesel stuff? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's of course more fun to learn all the boating side of things, where to go, the rules of road and everything, and how to take care. You clean the boat, you enjoy it, but not much worrying about the engine part of things. That's a big relief, especially for somebody who is new or somebody who doesn't really want to deep dive into all these
diesels. Exactly. Yeah. So so the next question: at what stage is it economical to repower an existing yacht to an electric one? What's the issues around that? And I think we've got a slide here that I can share here as well.
Yeah, commercially viable, as I said before, is if you have sort of daily usage, high run times, most likely even commercial boats. Then on a monetary side, you pretty fast get your investment back. For the leisure boater, so to speak, it's more paying a little bit more for the ease of mind and the absence of big maintenance jobs and deep understanding of combustion engines. So there's not so much a financial trade-off or financial benefit, but it's the usability and the fun factor. Yeah. Okay. So you pay for that. And for the commercial side, it's down to dollars and cents. How much am I paying for diesel fuel, for oils, for repairs, for service, for maintenance, for parts? And that is a pretty fast return on investment. What you see here on the slide, just for understanding, it's sort of a highly complex system. So you can see what the capabilities are. This would be, for example, an ocean-going sailing catamaran, where you have on one side as power source your solar panels. You have your inboard or sail drive engines. You have the big battery banks. You have gensets as the range extender if you need to go further. You will have the capabilities when you're sailing outside, and not in Singapore, but outside when there's a bit more wind. You can generate electricity with the motor, so you can replenish everything you need on board. You can directly tie in all the house loads, 12 volt, 24 volts, whatever you need for your winches, for your searchlights, 220-volt microwave, air conditioning, whatever creature comfort you have on board would all then be supplied out of the main battery system. So you have one electric system which looks after everything you have, everything you need on the boat, and you have a central GUI at the helm station where you see all the energy flows, the battery capacities, the RPMs you're doing, the kilowatts coming out, what is the regeneration rate, what is my solar yield. Everything is on one screen. You have full visibility of everything going on in the electric system on the boat.
Wow. Okay. It's pretty high tech these days, isn't it? Yeah. So if a first timer or anyone wanted to look at buying a electric motor to repower their boat, what would be, say, 3 top tips that you could share with someone that was thinking about doing this?
Okay. First tip is don't rush into it. Okay. Be very, very clear about what you expect the boat to do in terms of speed, range, mostly. Get somebody who understands the capabilities of the drive to match the use case to the existing platforms which are out there. Do your price calculation, understand what is the financial initial impact, you see what your savings are. And yeah, I mean, it's not only us. There are many out there. By all means, compare different offerings from different companies and see what is the best fit for your purpose, for your use case, what you want to do with the boat.
Okay, great. Yeah, I like the first one too. Is don't rush. Take your time and and that. So, any other considerations? Sorry.
So I say it's a big decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you want to take your time and talk to people who understand the technology and everything up and down, left, right, and center to give you the best advice what to do.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's when it's a good decision, it's a good decision. But if you don't do your due diligence properly, and like you say, get your best case or your use case correct, or you get sold into something by someone that's not going to do the consultation part that you guys do, then I'm sure you could make a mistake, couldn't you? And not get something that is going to, like you said, there's sometimes where you need to walk away from this. It's not the right thing for you to do. So let's not do that. Is there any other things that people should consider, or have we pretty much covered it?
I think we pretty much covered the major aspects of it. Okay.
So with these electric powered engines, what would be the area that you would be most concerned about with sort of this topic?
So what do you mean by concerned about?
Well, what would be, I suppose we've kind of touched on it, what would be the biggest risk, if you like, or, what would you be concerned about if I came to you and said, repower my boat, please?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, goes back to the use case. The biggest risk is not having the full information on the boat, and that is mainly the hydrodynamics. Whatever boat it is, we need to know exactly how many kilowatts the boat will take for what kind of speed, for 3 knots, 5 knots, 10, 20, 30 knots, and make sure that the battery capacity is sized to the right size to support the use case. So end of the day, it's mostly on us to really, get on the nerves of the customers to provide all that information. Sometimes, I don't have a power speed curve. Then we have to go back to the builder or to the yacht who did it, or to the naval architect, and get these numbers. And then we have a solid mathematical platform where we can sort of play all the different variants. Okay, how much air condition are you using, how fast you want to go, how far you want to go, what is your house consumption, you want a generator, yes or no, get the proper size for the generator. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun for us as well to come up with a system where customers say, yep, that's exactly what I want. Go ahead, guys, do it, put it in. I can't wait to see how it performs. But it's the risk is at the beginning when you sort of start collecting all the data points, all the information to have a solid base where we can base our calculations on.
Interesting. Okay, so if you had to pick one tip for someone, what would, out of all the things you've said today, what would be the number one tip?
The number one tip is look at it carefully. It is fun. Also, even from a performance point of view, the torque of the torque of electric engine is absolutely fantastic. So everybody who was ever in a Tesla, for example, know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same thing, yeah. So you just use the throttle a little bit, and you have immediately full power, and that is an awesome experience. And yeah, for those who say it makes sense for what they do, it's absolutely the right thing to do from the environmental point of view, from a fun factor, from the lack of maintenance. They're all the good sides. They are bundled together in that.
Sounds great. And so last question, Joerg, what are you most excited about for the future? And I've got a slide here that you've given to me. So let me share that. And you can explain, here it is here. You can explain what are you most excited about and what's this image about?
That is, of course, this is the ultimate way going forward. So we'll probably have seen the recent America's Cup, where you're not having boats anymore, but machines which are foiling on the water, so the hull doesn't even touch the water anymore. That means, of course, very low resistance. There are only 3 foils and blades are in the water. The boat is outside, and you can have tremendous speed and tremendous range, even electric. And proud to say what you're seeing there is a Swedish make called Candela, using our motors, our batteries, and that animal flies 30 knots. Wow. And up to 1.5 hours fully electrical. So that would be an ideal platform for people located in Singapore who are asset registered. They want to play around within Singapore. They want to go speed. They want to go reasonably far. They want to do water skiing. All those fun things where they say, nah, electric won't do that. That boat will give you all the fun factors.
Fantastic. And is this futuristic or is this in the market now?
Selling like hotcake. Wow. I'm in touch with Candela. We were looking at bringing one in last year for the boat show, but of course COVID put a spanner in the works. But if any of your listeners are interested to know more about that one, that is an awesome machine. And to just go on YouTube and check for Candela, and then you will see all the exciting things they're doing on the lakes in Sweden. And it's even nice in a more choppy water because the boat is not in the water. You just slice through where everybody is hobby horsing. You just slice through the water like there's nothing else.
And how big is this boat?
I think it's a 26-footer.
26-footer, yeah, okay. And any idea what this would retail for?
In euros, 250,000.
250,000 euro, yeah, okay. Well, it looks great. And that foiling stuff is pretty out there, isn't it? Okay, Joerg, this is fantastic. So awesome to see this sort of glimpse into the future. It's so great that the corner has been turned. And I really like what you guys are doing, and that you're making sure that you're managing expectations, and and saying yes to those people where it's possible, but equally saying no to those people where it's not possible, and making sure that everyone gets a good outcome, and moves forward with this electric stuff in the way that it should be. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'd like to thank you so much. All the attendees at the Expo are really going to enjoy this session. You're a mind of information. 9 years into it, you're certainly the man that knows all about it. So thank you so much for sharing today, Joerg. And
my pleasure, and thanks for having me. And again, if anybody wants more information, you can tell them where I am.
Yep.
I'm more than happy to support anybody who wants to look into electric propulsion.
Fantastic. Thank you, and we'll see you on the docks.
Absolutely. You will.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.